Jacqueline Hurst.
Jacqueline Hurst.
Jacqueline Hurst.
She's a clinical hypnotherapist, a master life coach, and the author of How to Do You. If you've ever felt like your own mind is the biggest obstacle to your happiness, this episode is for you. She specialises in helping people break the cycle of self-sabotage, silence their inner critic, and build unshakable self-worth. We are going deep on how to stop overthinking, how to quit people-pleasing, and how to master your mindset so you can finally control your life. Jacqueline, welcome to the show.
I wanted to begin by saying that I have read your book, How to Do You, and I've gone through every single part of that. And oh my goodness me, like genuinely, I have never read a book, a self-help book like that, where every lesson I was like, yes, like tick, 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 like every single thing. But I was kind of like that I'd learned these lessons myself over sort of 20-ish years of sort of watching self-help things, but you know, like personal things where I feel like I'd learned these things like separately to myself. And then they were like all in your book. And I was so amazed by it. So what, you know, if you haven't read it, I just want to say to those that are listening, honestly, genuinely, How to Do You, you must listen to the book. But if you yourself were able to sort of say, look, I want to take one lesson from the book, if you could, because I know it's quite difficult, because I know that you need to do, you know, you need all of the things in some way. But do you think that there's something that is the strongest lesson, the thing that you would love someone to hear or someone to...
I think first of all, let me say thank you very much for that amazing compliment about a book. You know, you write a book and you just never know how it's going to land. You know, I went to like 40 different publishers to get that book published and I got turned down 40 times.
Yes.
As typical, my style was like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'll do it myself then. And I did. I had an amazing publisher in LA and it sold like 15,000 copies. That in and of itself is an amazing lesson, isn't it? You know, where people say, no, it might not be a no for you. You know, if you believe in something, you've got to push through and you've got to do what's right for you. But so anyway, so thank you for those compliments. And I think the best and most important lesson I would say to people is ultimately, when you understand how to use your brilliant, intelligent, fascinating brain, when you learn how to use it because it is a learning experience, your life can change. And I think that's the key. You know, we often, you know, talk about things outside of ourselves that we think are causing our problems, but it's never outside of us. It's always how we choose to think about those things. So when we really understand the power of our brain, and then we really lock in to start to work it and understand it and use it properly, it's a life-changing experience and it's really important.
I remember learning that myself many years ago and trying to speak to people about it. And they were just kind of like, what do you mean my thoughts aren't my thoughts, or they're not my own?
Yeah.
Because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, you know, your thoughts are, you know, an amalgam. They come from all sorts of places. You know, you could have watched a film and you've taken something in, or someone said something to you, or you start to have these beliefs about things because of your opinion and your experiences. And I remember just being, you know, and people I mean, how do you get that message across to people that it is part of their...
I think, you know, I've been very lucky. I've been doing this work for over 20 years. I've worked with over 9,000 clients. I've been really lucky. And I will only work with people who are really, really ready to do the work.
Yeah.
And you know, you cannot make people ready. They have to be ready. And so sometimes it's about having a gift of desperation where they're at a point and they fundamentally cannot carry on and they need help. And sometimes it's just like, my life really sucks and I know it can be better. Can you help me? So, you know, it's really up to the individual that when they're ready to do it, that's when the work works best. That was a tongue twister, but yeah.
In terms of then when someone wants to see a life coach or books and comes to yourself, is it a certain time in their life? Are they at a time? You know, is everyone in a desperate situation? Is everyone needing help, or is it all kind of very different?
It's all very different. Some people really need it, and other people are just like, my life sucks and I need to be more confident, or I want to be happier, or I don't know if I should leave my husband, or, I can't get my promotion that I know I should have. And, you know, when we're sitting uncomfortably with ourselves, that's a really good place to start to say, right, what can I do to make my life better? And, we're constantly pushed. I don't know, I'm very spiritual, so I'm going to call it the universe. We're constantly pushed into uncomfortable places in order to grow and evolve. And so we either choose to be conscious of that and say, right, I could do some work here and become bigger and better as a person, or I'm just going to stick my head in the sand and I don't really want to look at it.
I
And that's
think,
a choice.
yeah, okay. Do you find that a lot of people are are wanting to put their head in the sand, or do you feel that most of the clients who you meet with, they are ready to?
Yeah, I mean, the people I meet and work with will be ready. They're reaching out for a reason, and they're sort of saying, like, I'm ready to deal with this problem. Somebody who sticks their head in the sand will not be contacting me.
And does anyone ever contact you on someone's behalf and say, look, I think it'd be great for you to, so they are maybe sticking their head in the sand, but someone around them's going, you need to learn from this.
That's right. And my immediate response is, when they call me, I'd be happy to have a conversation.
Yeah. No, they need to be ready to do the work.
Yeah, because what, otherwise you're sort of wasting your energy, their energy. It's not a healthy thing. And that's really hard. I know often, people see their loved ones in these difficult situations. They really want to help, but you can't help someone unless they want to help themselves.
And I think that's the thing as well, just going back to what you were saying about the growth. You talk about that in your book, and I think I'm a massive believer in that once you go through a lesson, you or a challenge or the most difficult, excruciating times, like there's always a lesson to be learned. How did you learn that yourself?
Because I had a gazillion of them.
Yeah.
And, that's the thing. It's like, at the time, you do not see it as a lesson. You just see it as something really bad or really painful or really, in quotes, wrong, and you never look at it as like, oh, this is going to really help me evolve. And, if someone said that to me through my lessons, I just want to, be like, what are you talking about? But every time I've been through these deep life lessons, I have evolved as a person. And I'm sure it's done for me, not to me. So, these things are really great opportunities to, become who you want to be and to become stronger through it. And we've all got lessons to learn. And, there's a very clever tapestry going on that's bigger than us that says, right, she needs to learn this, so I'm going to put her there, and then we learn.
Yeah. And do you find that you're able to look at that yourself now still? Are you able to go to that mindset when something really terrible is happening, even in your life now?
Absolutely. I mean, I practice what I preach. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a really, I'm a real believer of authenticity. I'm never going to teach you something I'm not doing myself. So, it's really important to get your head right. And that is the key. Like, so life happens to me on life's terms. I can't control it. I can't control when, airplanes are delayed, or someone shouting in the street, or, a taxi driver's hooting me as I'm trying to reverse my car. I can't control that stuff. But what I can do is either choose to, like, find the humor in that situation, or I can choose to let that ruin my day. So once I take responsibility for that, then I know what to do. Now, neither of those responses are right or wrong. It's just, I know that I've got a choice. If I want to let it ruin my day, I'll let it ruin my day, right? Well, that's how it's going to be today. But at least I know I'm doing it.
Yeah. And it's almost like you've woken up. It's like, I see people, it's almost like people are not in that state of mind. There's so many people who do allow it to ruin their day. But I don't think it's consciously. Personally, I feel like it's almost programmed into us somehow. I don't really know.
I think the opposite. I think that we have never, it's not that it's programmed into us. It's just no one's ever taught us how not to.
Yeah.
Like, we never get taught that, I never got taught this at school. I never got taught, like, hey, these are how your feelings come about, and this is what your mindset is, and this is your thought process. I just got taught, like, freaking geography that I got thrown out of anyway, and things like that just were completely irrelevant to me. And that's the thing, people walk into my office and they are unconscious, and it's nobody's fault. It's not their fault. I was unconscious before I had to wake up and get conscious to what was going on. So, It's not necessarily a programming, it's more of an unconscious life experience, which, some people go through their whole life like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you get much pushback on that? When you're trying to say, well, you get to choose what that means in that moment. Do people find that really difficult to take on?
Well, I wouldn't say they find it difficult. It's definitely a light bulb moment of like, whoa, hang on, are you telling me I've got a choice here?
Yeah.
Because when you understand that you make the choice because you want to feel better, then that's quite an empowering thought. And this isn't about, this, what's that word? A client of mine said to me yesterday, toxic positivity. I hadn't heard that before. I thought that was great. This isn't just like, let's just, butterflies and daisies say that's okay in my head when it isn't. Like, no, we don't play that game. But we do push our brains to a space where we can find a way to think about whatever that thing is in a way that does make us feel calmer or more confident or more peaceful or unbothered. We can. And that's the work we do and we learn.
And do you think that's the most important thing that someone could work on then, the way that they're looking at things and their belief systems and structures in themselves?
100%. 100%. 100%. Because what we like to do is we are really in what I call emotional childhood most of the time. And we respond and react from what we've learned as kids. And, these places are not healthy for us. And what was once like our safety mechanism as we get older isn't always a safety mechanism anymore. If anything, it holds us back. So I do think questioning that and learning that is really important because, I think it was Carl Jung that said, until you make the unconscious conscious, you will live your life and call it fate. And it's one of my favorite sayings. So I should know that it is Carl Jung, and it is, by the way. I don't.
Yeah.
It is. It definitely is. I don't know why I was thinking Einstein, but it's not. And it's a great saying because what he's teaching us there is a fact, which is we are going around unconscious, and until we make that unconscious patterning conscious, we're going to go, oh, that was fated, but it isn't. It's you've chosen those things, you just haven't realized that you have.
I think it is interesting that you see it a lot where people do react to the same situation very differently, and that's really, and that's I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm assuming that's what you mean when you say that you can have that same situation, and different people can just take it differently, and we all get that choice. Do you think then when it's like a serious situation, does that change anything? So if it was someone's diagnosed with a terminal illness, as an example, do we look at that and say, well, I've got all this time left, I'll use it wisely? Do you know what I mean? Like, does that change anything about mindset?
No, I think that whatever the situation is that you're facing will be out of your control, whether it's a terminal illness or whether it's raining and you wanted it to be sunny on a special day, right? Like ultimately, when I talk about the situation as I'm making my quote marks, a situation is your life, and your life is stuff that's out of your control. So it's all in the same box. And then what you do with that process is learn how to think about it in ways where you feel.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you go to calm, it's better than panicked. Right. So again, we're not going from A to Z. We're not going from like sadness to happiness in 1 second, because that would be really weird. But we can go from sadness to calmer, as an example, right?
Yeah.
So learning how to use our mind is really important. Really important.
And do you feel, is life still fulfilling when you are sort of a much more calmer?
Life is like 1,000 billion times better because you are the one that's in control of how you choose to live. And you don't really care what people think or say. You have that total freedom of you living your truth and being in your truth and allowing people to be who they are without trying to make them different so you feel better. It's so much more peaceful to live that way.
I love that. I think that's great. I think there's a lot of people it's hard to get that message across to sort of certain individuals. Yeah. And so in terms of our thoughts then shaping how things are, you say that comes, I know for yourself reading your book, there was a lot about childhood and how you're then processing it and what you're making things mean. Is that somewhere people can start as well, is just looking at the way that they actually, what they think of that situation means, because you were saying a little bit about how not making things all about yourself all the time. Could be a situation with another person. For example, you think that maybe they don't like you or something like that. It's hard to explain, but do you think when it comes to someone maybe not liking you or you're having friction with someone, how do you deal with that circumstance with just your side of it?
I was a believer of like, can I put my head on the pillow and know that I've been the best version of myself,
Yeah.
that I've been honest and I've been calm and I've done the right thing in my world.
Yeah.
And if I've done that, then I have to release and let go of what anyone else thinks or says about me. Because what I think about me is way more important because I live with me.
Yeah.
So other people can choose not to like me and I can choose not to care. And that's the power in your mindset, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going out there being horrible and being nasty, then it's a whole different ballgame. But most of the time, people are not doing that,
No.
right? They're just being themselves. And so it's very important to learn how to differentiate between what is your stuff versus what is someone else's stuff.
Yeah.
That's really important, which
Yeah.
you'll do, going through the work.
Yeah. Okay. I understand. I think it's things like that where you're dealing with situations and still it's trying to get, because that's what I thought when I read your book. I was like, okay, so a lot of the lessons here I've seen myself over the years, but I felt like it was such a great, almost like a reminder of these things, so that when you talk about thinking, you can say, I'm going to think about something positively, and then you'll find the evidence in a positive mindset. But that's what I noticed that people, or even myself, has done over the years, where you can find something that's negative, and then all of the things around that are, your evidence is then negative, if you see what I mean. So
100%.
yeah. So either way, you get it's almost like reading your book, you're almost giving people the power to take it on the more positive way and then find that evidence of it being positive. Because we can all go, oh, it's negative and there's a negative situation and here's all the evidence that supports that. But how many people, do you find that there's a lot of people out there who do that, or who you meet with, that are doing the opposite? So finding a negative and then the negative situation around it, or the negative evidence, should I say?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, any client that walks through my door is doing exactly that because they don't know how to. But I will say that it's not just negative and positive. There's a middle ground, which is neutral. And
Yeah.
that can feel quite good too sometimes. There's just a neutral ground that people can sit on. So yeah, it's the unlearning to relearn.
That's in terms of all of your lessons. I noticed that you'd said, I think it was on a podcast actually, that you do have certain influences. Who would you say has been one of the most influential people in your life, be it a self-help person or?
I mean, that's such a hard question. It's like asking me which is my favorite pair of shoes because I'm like a shoeaholic. I really couldn't answer that question. So many people have made such big impacts. I think one of the really big ones was Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to him, as I got clean when I was sort of 27, I think I was. And Eckhart Tolle also, huge. That was those two teachers were really good. And Abraham Hicks also, fascinating.
Oh,
Yeah.
me and Daya myself, I think, yeah, there's so many lessons there that I can see that definitely. In terms of gratitude, just going on to that, I know that Wayne Dyer, but also within your book, you talk about gratitude and how that has an impact on your life. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
I just think gratitude is the fastest way to happiness because I think, it's very hard to be miserable and grateful at the same time. And I think that we can get so caught up in like real life that we forget these things that are really important. Our health is really important. The fact that we've got a roof over our head, really important. The fact that we can feed ourselves and we've got food in our fridges and we've got warmth and we've got these things that we all take for granted are really massive. And actually, the more grateful you are for things, the more things you find to be grateful for. So when you start thinking along that route, you do feel so much better instead of, focusing on the things that you think that you don't have. Gratitude's a really important lesson and it's a really important thing to be consciously thinking about.
And do you make time for that yourself each day? And do you tell your clients to do that as well?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I take my dog for a walk in the mornings, which I love. I take her into the park and I watch her fly around. There's never four paws on the ground with this dog. And she's just adorable. And, you know, it's simple things. When I was 27 and I was getting clean, I remember sitting in a meeting, a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and I was a complete mess. You know, I'd just come clean and my brain was all over the place. And I remember listening to this woman, she was much older, she was probably in her 80s. And she said, I like to go swimming. And I really like that. And so I do that every day. And I have worked out in my life that that's enough.
Yeah.
Because it gives me joy. And for me, that was like a rocket went off.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, am I allowed to be okay with that? The simplicity of that in my life, that I like to take my dog for a walk and it brings me so much joy. And I think when we break things down to look at things in those sorts of ways, we realize how gifted we actually are and how many gifts we're constantly given. The sun was out today. We're so lucky. Some people never got to see that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's about turning it down a notch sometimes,
Yeah.
and looking for the good.
I know that myself. And again, that's where I resonated with you a lot in terms of even just that with nature. You know, that's one thing that's been really important to me and sort of my family is just this simple, wonderful, you know, like nature bathing and going into the forest and going with the dog and just like you said, just that crystal blue sky and the sunlight coming through the trees. And it's just really rewarding. Like the simple things can be so beneficial.
Yeah,
and I don't know how, you know, do people take enough time out to do that? Do you find that when you're meeting, I mean, you've had a lot of clients over the years, is there something in, I mean, yes, you're dealing with lots of different people and lots of different things, but is there ever something that is like that through line, that certain thing that they're missing? Or is it a certain thing that they're not all dealing with, but is there anything that, are we all the same? Is there something there that you find, you know what, it's this, it's, you know, it's often this?
I don't think I could say we're all the same because we've all got different views and thoughts and opinions and we've all been brought up differently. Our map of the world is totally different. But there is a lot of, especially in England, I mean, I'm just talking about the UK right now because it's not in all countries, but there's a lot of people that do think that they are not good enough. And that is a running theme for the English.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the Americans, right? Like it's slightly different over there. But you know, and that's in a good way because over there they are brought up, I think, very differently in the way that they are, you know, taught from the beginning. Like, you've got this, you can do this, you know, you can get it, you can do, you know, they're very positive. Whereas over here, I think it's just really different. So yeah, there's definitely that.
And where do you think that stems from? What do you think it is? Do you think it is our opinion in the moments of the things that we should be? You know, I know in your book you talk about the incident with your skirt and how you interpreted that as what it meant to you in that moment. Do you think that we're more, I don't know, like what do you think helps?
I think it's a mixture of lots of different things. And I think the English, we are still quite stiff upper lip.
Yeah.
We're still like, oh, I don't want a confrontation, so I won't say anything. It's polite not to, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, we're still very English in many ways. You know, don't speak about that or brush it under the carpet. You know, there's this kind of stuff that goes on. And hopefully through the generations that will change and people will talk about things more, not to an extent where it's, you know, insane making. And I'm sure you understand what I mean there. But also, you know, if there's a problem, talk about it.
And so you think in the moment though that people need to sometimes maybe be a little bit more honest about how they're feeling about things. But maybe
I think it would help things, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe do you think it could be expectations as well that people feel that they have to, like you said, like live up to this, I'm okay?
I mean, yeah, I think that's there in many cases, yeah. And I don't doubt that sentence. Yes, there is that. That can play a big part of it, yeah.
If someone's listening now who feels not good enough and they can't meet with you or they can't meet with the life coach, where would you recommend they begin when it comes to not feeling good enough?
I just would say start to do some work on that and look into it and look at why you think that. And then start to look at the evidence of why that might not be true. You know,
Yeah. When you said like look, like work on that, what do you think they could do specifically? What would you
I think there is so much information out there today. You've got so much available to you to learn about yourself
yeah,
online, that if that's what you're thinking, I would sort of start to do some work on it. I would start to Google it, look into it. Why am I thinking this? What are the things I can do that can help me, change that if I can't, get a coach or read a book? There's so much information out there, way more than when, I started 20 years ago, when people said, well, what's a life coach? Nobody needs that. What's that about? And I
yeah,
would say mental health. And they'd say to me, what's mental health?
yeah.
So from there to here, there's a lot of information.
Yeah. Do you think that sort of writing things down, would that be a good place to start? I know that in your
Yeah.
book, there's all the lovely worksheets and then sort of, the bits where you can start to write about certain elements and but just even, I think you talked about that in your book about, maybe writing your thoughts down.
I'm a real believer of pen and paper. Old school, get it out your head and get it onto paper. It's very helpful to do that. So writing is a really beautiful way of understanding yourself, and it's free. You get your notepad and boom, off you go. And you will learn a lot about yourself doing that.
Yeah, I think as well, sometimes what I've learned over the years about writing things down is that in your head, you can think that you've got literally 1,000 problems, and then you write them down and you're like, what?
Yeah.
That's possible. There's
Yeah.
only three things. I can't, no,
Yeah.
actually, hang on a minute. It can't be
Yeah.
right. So it's a really great way to process because in your head, it can seem such a big thing. And yeah, writing it down can be much, helpful. Is that
Yeah.
something that you'd recommend, like journaling each day, almost like a diary, just kind of writing down,
Yeah, I think journaling's great. And I think gratitude lists are great as well. What are the things that I'm grateful for today? A list of 10 things I'm grateful for before I go to bed at night or when I wake up in the morning. These sorts of things shift your mindset. And that's really good. And it could be like, right, today I'm going to challenge myself that I'm just not going to be negative just for today. Just for today, I'm going to be really positive about everything that happens. And I swear you're going to have a different type of day. It
yeah,
changes. It's different.
100%. I mean, I think for me that highlights to people that how negative you can be. Because I know you say it's not about negative and positive, but like you say there, with negative, you genuinely can have a completely different day. But I think when I first did that, I did it myself about 15 years ago. That's what I realized. I didn't know that I was being that negative. I actually thought I was a really positive person. And then as soon as it was like, right, be positive for the entire day, it was like, gosh, okay, I'll try. Oh, let's start that again. I'll start again tomorrow because I said,
Yeah.
but I think for me as well, that was a really good turning point where I was able to start thinking about how to change my mind. So if I did have a negative thought that was just instant, that I would then be able to sort of start thinking about it slightly differently and actually start to change my mindset in that moment. So I think that was really helpful, having a positive day or a positive 2 weeks. Yeah. And
Really
is that
good.
one of the things that you've done yourself? Did you do that yourself?
Did I do what myself? Sorry.
In terms of just looking at your thinking and then saying, right, okay, so after everything that was going on at the beginning and the beginning of your sort of life coaching journey, did you have times where you went, actually, my thinking is completely wrong here and I need to change it to a more positive outlook? Or
Yeah, definitely. And I still do that today. If I get annoyed about things, like where I live at the moment, they've added more restaurants and cafes. And so at Christmas time is really busy around here.
yeah,
And you literally can't walk on the pavement because there were so many people. So, I mean, I'm human, right? My first thought process, and I can't swear on this podcast, I'm sure, but my first thought process was not very pretty, right?
yeah,
And how dare they? This is ridiculous. Someone's going to have an accident, and why
yeah,
don't they care about the resident? Blah 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 blah. So it goes on in my brain,
yeah.
and then I will immediately feel, okay, these thoughts are making me angry and agitated and annoyed, and I don't want to feel like that. So I better quickly come up with a different way to think about that, which doesn't mean I don't do anything about it. It just means I feel better. before I do something about it. And
Yeah.
then I'll probably take a much better action and get a much better outcome.
Yeah. And that's so much effort. Like, I mean, for the years that I've known about this kind of stuff, I'm in awe that you can still like just do that. So,
Well, I've been doing it for a really long time and I teach
yeah.
it. So I don't think it's so much effort. I think that it requires some work to learn how to do it, but then anything worth having does. And once you've learned how to do it, you would never not do it because it feels so much better.
Yeah, I understand. And I know the outcomes are better. I think it's sometimes just that automatic programming or just the way, like, how people are brought up as well, I suppose, comes into it. And, all they know, maybe, like some
Yeah.
households are, angry, for example. Everyone in the house is a kind of an angry-ish
But it
person.
is your responsibility as an adult to make those changes if you want to. You can't become like those who hurt you. You
No,
can't blame your family for who you are
no,
because
I
you're an
understand
adult. It's like it's your job to say, I'm following these patterns and I'm not feeling good about it and I don't want to be an angry person or it's getting me into trouble and I need to look at the stuff.
that. Yeah.
And that's emotional adulthood.
And I think that's what I'd love people to take from this is that people can wake up from it, because I genuinely think that sometimes you don't realize. And I know, like, for me, years ago, I definitely didn't realize how I was behaving. And all of a sudden I had a bit of a wake up and I was like, oh, hang on a minute. Oh, yeah. So all my family behaved like that. And then my husband's family, maybe they behaved like this. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Same situation. We're all dealing with it differently. Okay, let's think about that. And I think for me, I feel lucky that I was able to do that. But I hope that other people can take that, even just from this moment, you know?
That's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that I think I do feel like we're learning lessons if you want to as well, like you say. And so I think that for me was one of those lessons. But I know we're really short on time, so I know I don't want to keep you too much, but I just want to one of the final questions is, if you could just leave us with something that I haven't asked, or if you've got anything that you would like to say, is there anything that I may have missed or that you'd like to bring to the table?
I would just say to whoever's listening, if you're not happy with your life, you can change it. And I think that's really important to know, that we don't have to be, repeating things or living in ways where we're not happy. What we're not changing, we're choosing to do it. And some people probably won't like that. Well, I've got bills to pay and I can't change my job and blah, 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 blah. But actually you can change all of that when you want to. And there are ways around all of these things. Once you've got into your mental gymnastics, you can live a life that you really want to live, and to not hold yourself back.
But that's what I think as well from your book. When you are in a negative mindset, when you read your book, it gives you kind of the belief that you can think differently about it, that you can actually think positively, and then you can find the evidence to think positively. And then it is true, though, what you say about how you can think something and then you feel something, and then your feeling then goes into your actions. And then it's kind of that sort of circle of, it almost gives you more belief, and then there's more feeling and there's more action. And it kind of creates this wonderful push forward in a more, uplifting and positive way.
Exactly that. Yeah, no, exactly
In
that.
your words. I mean,
Exactly that. No, I love it. Everything you're saying is spot on. Exactly that.
so
Yeah.
starting with yourself, starting with your mindset, starting with your thoughts, and yeah, writing things down. I think that's brilliant. I do want to just finish with 3 big questions. I ask everybody my final big questions at the end. Really simple, 1-word answer, sentence answer. Nobody ever really knows the answer, but maybe you do. So if you don't mind, I'll ask you these questions now. So what do you think the key to success is?
Belief in yourself.
What do you think the secret to happiness is?
The secret to happiness is a really strong mindset.
And what do you think the meaning of life is?
The meaning of, what do I think the meaning of life is? I think the meaning of life is about connection.
And if you had a quote that you use most days, or if you have certain words that stand with you most days, sorry, I'm saying if there is, do you have a quote that sticks with you most days?
I don't think it's anything specific, but I always do think that there's a reason behind everything.
Yeah.
And I also would say that out of bad comes good. So when you're going through that bad time, good does come, and you will not see it in the moment. You'll probably want it to smack me when you hear that if you're going through a bad time. But
Yeah.
I promise you, out of bad does come good.
I
And you
find,
just, yeah,
sorry.
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, when I write sort of quotes on Jolly Soul, and I'm often, it's hard not to think of the whole picture. You know, sometimes you'll find this message and you think, oh, that's really wonderful. And then, like you say, somebody, you know, I want to write for the person who is having a bad time, and then is connecting with them on a level where they don't think, oh, yeah, all right, do one, because that doesn't help me at all. Oh, think grateful, you know, think this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get that totally. I just you want to make a difference, but sometimes people can't hear it in that moment, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean they don't. You know, sometimes I get clients, and I say to them, how did you hear about me? And they'll say, I saw you in the Daily Telegraph 7 years ago, and I kept it in my drawer, and now I'm ready. And I have had that so many times, and I think, wow, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? So, you know, people do become ready. We've always got to have the hope that they will become ready at some point. It doesn't, you know, it's in their timing. That's all.
And like planting that seed, I think, is always a good thing. When you
Yeah,
plant
super
seed,
important.
yeah,
Yeah,
like I always think as well about lessons, that you might hear a lesson, you see something that's really important, but then it doesn't kind of always sink in that at that moment. And I've even
absolutely.
listened to a video, you know, like seen a YouTube clip and thought, oh, I've watched this last year, but then it hits completely differently. And I'm like, oh,
Isn't
wow.
that amazing? I love that. Sometimes you've got to hear it 100 times, you know, and then you get it. It's like, that's part of it.
I can't actually, I've listened to some things like that and I've thought, my goodness, I can't believe it's actually just gone in completely different.
Yeah.
Just to finish, we have the Jolly Jar, which I'd normally ask you to pick a quote from, which is one of the quotes that I'll have written on Jolly Soul on the Instagram. So I'm just going to finish by picking one for you, if you don't mind me picking one.
Go for it. That would be lovely.
Okay, let's see what you get. So believe you deserve a life full of happiness, and you will start to see it show up everywhere you look. There we are.
Thank you very much. That's lovely.
Well, it's been so wonderful to have this conversation. I really appreciate your time, and genuinely, if you've not read your book, How to Do You, I hope that this will inspire many people to get it. And as I said, genuinely, it is one of those books that everything really connected with me. Genuinely, I was like, how have you learned this lesson when I learned that with this and this experience? And I was so shook. So yeah,
That's
amazing book. And yeah, really wonderful to meet with you. And yeah, I hope we can do something like this in person at some point in the future.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So, you know, it's great. I can't wait to hear it. It'll be really fun.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
And you take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye.